Sue Martin's Big Night In, Dr. Rohan Weerasinghe. I love that name. It's fantastic. Turning Point is the book. Now, you really are well known. Sort of, if you go to your website, go to YouTube, there you are, talking in front of endless people. Yeah. What was it like the first time you did that, when you said, right, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get my message out there?
A massive high.
Was it?
I stood in front of the audience, and the very first time I actually started talking about what I'm passionate about, it was in the breaks when people come up and they're in tears, or they just come up and say, what's one thing you said absolutely connected with me, and thank you so much. So it's extremely stimulating, and that's really where, over a 10-year period, people were saying, you've got to get this into writing, because I was using a lot of tools with audiences and coaching and mentoring face to face, and I was using all these processes, and it wasn't written down anywhere. So I wanted to have it in a formula that somebody could take away and read in the piece of their own mind. So connecting with audiences is fantastic, because you really get to see the impact of what you're using. So in a way, the book has been forged with years of different tools to see what works and what doesn't work, and that's why it's, the way it's set out the way it is. And music, just talking about music is one of those tools. I find it very powerful. It stimulates people, and if you've got a CD of certain tracks that remind you of great moments in your life, it picks you up straight away.
Yeah, very much so.
So I do use that as well when talking to my audiences.
Mark has sent a little text in here saying, how do you resolve disputes between mum and my wife? They don't get on. Do I leave as they don't speak at all?
They don't speak at all.
They don't speak at all.
Okay, so the first thing when there comes to a dispute is, one of the things I always like to say to people is, identify what the core needs of each of those two people are. And that's one of the chapters I talk about in the book. I talk about values. Each of us have human needs. So, for example, I don't know what the dispute is about, but if mum has an issue with, say, for example, how his wife deals with money, for example, if his mum has got a very security-driven lifestyle, so she's a saver, she doesn't want to risk anything, she wants to be very cautious with how she spends her money, she has a value of security. She truly values security. If his wife, on the other hand, as an example, is somebody that loves to go and spend money, and she does variety and trying lots of different things, there's a massive conflict there. That happens in relationships as well. So you've got two people that have got two very important values which they hold dearly, but they clash. So what he's got to do is find a way to listen to his mum and listen to his wife, and find out what their top values are. What do they find important to themselves, and then see if he can find a way to communicate that between the two. So, for example, what he could say to his mum is, look, what we'd like to do is take you on a holiday, if she doesn't want to spend things, and say that'll give you a much greater way of feeling secure and comfortable, and we'd like to spend some time with you, and communicate in a way that the two can hear the same message. What often happens in a dispute is one person's using one language and the other person's using another language. So listen, mum might use visual descriptions, his wife might use auditory. So it's about language. It's about using different word patterns. But definitely open up the connection. It's very important.
James Blunt and Stay the Night. Talking about being blunt, we're talking about Turning Point, where you have to get honest with yourself. Dr. Rohan Weerasinghe is here in the studio. Now, Dave just sent a email in to say, hi Sue, just tuned into your guest. Good, we're all in tune here this evening. Does he think there's a consciousness shift happening and possibly linked to 2012? Or is it that people are becoming less materialistic, left brain complex, and are people addicted to fear? There's quite a bit in there.
Yeah, it's a good question. Let's just talk very briefly about the 2012. I think he's referring to the Mayan calendar. If we just put that aside for a minute, I actually just genuinely believe, we talked about this earlier on, that there is definitely a raising in consciousness. I think people are definitely moving away from the desperate need to own things, and they're wanting to connect back to who they are as individuals. That we're getting a lot of knockbacks, the economic climate, the recession, the divorce rates increasing, and human beings are looking inside and saying, okay, I'm fed up with looking out for the solution outside. Let me go back in, and that forms this raising consciousness we're talking about. So there's people like yourself, Sue, that are out with this amazing energy, and you're just talking about the people you're attracting to yourself, and you have a voice that's going to impact hundreds of thousands of lives. And I think that's the level of raising consciousness that we need. I go out and speak to audiences, you broadcast through the media. People like the Dalai Lama comes into a city, and it's been proven now that when he walks into a place, he literally, because of his consciousness, he raises the energy in every human being in that place. And there's a tip tipping point in the world, and when you get enough, I can't remember what the statistic is, but when you get enough people in the world of that level of consciousness, there will be a shift in our attitudes. We'll move away from this absolute obsession to own things, to wanting to be much more content with following a purpose. And you know, the funny thing is, when you become more in your flow, you attract great things to you anyway, whether it's money or relationships or health, they'll come to us anyway. And that's what I found and observed working with so many people over the years.
Yeah.
And I see you here loving what you're doing, and that's the classic example of it.
Absolutely, I just adore it. I'm so lucky. Sue, ask your man, I've been carrying a heavy load of a loved one who is very unwell, but I still have to be me. But all of a sudden things I love doing in dancing and acting have happened, which is like a dream. But the problem I have is I find it hard to trust many men due to an awful past experience, and not to trust many. Hey, we've all been there.
Yeah. So the question is about trust.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to remember here is that when it comes to trust and a breakup in a relationship, that she has to take that responsibility back now and learn to trust herself first. It's like a cup. I mean, often what happens is, in order for you to trust others, you're like a glass of water, and you're pouring water into other people's glass. That's your trust. But if your glass isn't full with trust itself, full of water, you won't be able to trust others. So the important thing here is to remember that he did what he did because he had his own programming. He had all sorts of stuff going on in his life, and unfortunately that would have spilled over into her life and offended her. So all I would say to you listening to this right now is the first step is now to forgive. You have to forgive. Here's a little tool. Try this. Write yourself a letter tonight, and write that letter to him, doing two things. The first thing is to, first of all, forgive him for everything he may have done to you to hurt you. And then the second thing is to thank him for some of the great gifts that you may have taken away from that. Just one or two gifts. Write the letter. You don't have to send it. Just write it and get it out of your system. And then start to look inside and trust yourself, because it sounds to me like you're a lovely person. And if you allow that space of trust inside you to occur, you will start to attract other amazing people to you and become the person that you want to be. You don't have to be anybody else for anybody else. Just be you.
Absolutely, and it is important to be you and trust your instinct as well.
Absolutely.
That little voice inside that I get quite addicted to shopping, actually, getting things, you know. And I got to the point where I just thought, hang on a minute, and I go and see something and think, do I really want this? You know, and I think, actually, well, no. And I have this thing now where I just put something on and say, fabulous or not. If it's not fabulous, I'm not wearing it.
Not going to wear it, no. And that's about energy, isn't it? It's about how you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so. Richard in Flitwick said, why do my friends see their partners through rose-coloured glasses until they separate?
Why do his friends see their friends or your friends?
Why do my friends see their partners through rose glasses until they separate?
That goes back to the conversation we had earlier on about people's values. When you meet somebody that you're really attracted to, what happens is it's like the tuning fork again. Yeah. So imagine, like you and I here, there's an instant connection. So there's a tuning fork, and two people, when they meet, all their values align. So for example, two people meet and they go out for dinner. There's lots of variety. There's lots of fun. So that one of the human needs is fun. Another human need might be connection. So they're getting this connection. So typically when people first meet, there's a strong connection of all the primary values, the needs that we have. Then you settle into habits, and then other parts of that personality come out. And then when the separation occurs, what happens is we start to then focus on the values that we don't like about that person instead of the ones that we did like. Yeah. So then they start to notice the fact that she, I don't know, maybe the way she doesn't wear her clothes or her hair. They start to literally pick up on the little things about them that they didn't notice before because they blocked them out. It's a filter. Literally, you can put a pair of glasses on. You and I now could be wearing green glasses, and we look out the window and everything's green. Yeah. Then I say to you, Sue, put on a pair of red glasses, and we can see your lovely assistant out there with a dog. And to you, the dog looks red. To me, the dog looks green, and yet we're looking at the same scene. Sure. So we've just changed the filter in our mind, and that's all that happens when things like that happen. But we can change them back if we choose to. Yeah.
Wow, we can indeed. All right, well, if we want to find out more about Dr. Rowan, because we're running out of time, look at it, it's 6 minutes to 8 already.
Oh my gosh.
We've been enjoying ourselves so much. If you want to find out more, then there is a website, of course, so you better spell it out because it's your name.
Okay, so it's www.rohan, ROHAN, live, LIVE.com. So it's www.rohanlive.com.
Excellent. It's much easier than spelling.
It is, yeah. If someone wants to go on there and just register their interest, the book comes out on the 4th of May through Amazon, so they can find it there, and it's called Turning Point.
All right. And what about if people want to, think, well, I want to talk more to this guy? Do you do it's like one-to-ones via your website?
Yeah, there's coaching, and we're actually launching with the book. We've got a seminar coming up on, and if they go to the website, they'll see, but it's a live, interactive, in other words, go through the Turning Point yourself live the first weekend in June.
Fantastic.
So we're keeping it small to about 100 people to start with, and anyone that comes through that's going to go through an amazing experience. So yeah, it'd be lovely to meet somebody if they've got some things that I'd like to discuss.
Wow. You see, with this man in the studio here, I just feel like I've just been plugged into something else. I'm well tuned in as well. Been a joy having you here on the programme, Rohan. Lots of luck with the book. Turning Point, here it is, a 6-step process for transforming your life. And we can all do it. We just need to find that need. And as I say, sometimes if we behave over and over again in the same way, we get bigger and bigger cosmic slaps, as I call them. Yeah. And so that's when you know that you've got to change and go, hey, no,
100%.
Yeah. It's great having you here in the studio.
So much. Thank you for inviting me in, and I love your energy. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Whee! Thank you.